That's simply unimaginable. That's never going to happen. Hey, it's Marek. I'm recording this podcast because I got really annoyed, seriously annoyed. There's this new AI narrative emerging that's quite misleading. It's sometimes correct, but in a lot of cases, in a lot of situations, it's absolutely incorrect. And I need to talk about it. Axios published an article a couple of weeks ago called AI Can Cost More Than Human Workers Now. I'm looking at it on my screen. There's a statement there where it says IT budgets are getting blown out as some companies increasingly spend more on AI than on employee salaries. They spend more on AI than on employee salaries. And then they say why it matters. Maybe human labor will be more cost efficient after all. Maybe human labor will be more cost efficient after all. There's a massive logical fallacy in those statements, but let me get to them very soon because there's another article that I found at Fortune, where the title says Microsoft reports are exposing AI's real cost problem. Using the tech is more expensive than paying human employees. Again, a logical fallacy there. You haven't read the entire article. I have. They're drawing conclusions from facts that just do not allow one to draw such conclusions. So back to the Axios article. Axios article is reporting on a conversation with NVIDIA's vice president of deep learning. His name is Brian Catanzaro. And Brian said something along the lines that they're now spending more money on compute, so, GPUs and all the infrastructures and all the algorithms that are running, than on the human employees in Brian's team. Sounds expensive, sounds like humans are cheaper than AI. But really the problem here is Catanzaro is running a deep learning team, a team that does a lot of computations, that has to use those very, very sophisticated machines. It is a bit like saying that my local water utility, the company that has water pipes and sewage pipes, it is like saying that my local water utility is spending more money on pipes than on plumbers. Well, of course they are, because that's what they do. They need to have all that infrastructure. Nobody would be drawing a conclusion that suddenly we should have all the plumbers carrying water to homes in my neighborhood because humans are cheaper, because my local water utility is spending less money on humans than it's spending on the infrastructure. That's the NVIDIA case. You cannot draw a conclusion that suddenly humans are cheaper than AI and so, it's more cost efficient or more cost effective to use humans instead of AI. So that's the NVIDIA case from Axios. Fortune, Microsoft, that particular case, there was a case in which Microsoft's software developers were using so much of the external coding tools, Claude Code CLI more specifically, that Microsoft decided to start shifting them toward their local or their own tool, GitHub Copilot CLI, which is cheaper for Microsoft. So this was a case of one tool against another tool. You cannot really draw a conclusion, which the article did, saying using the tech is more expensive than paying human employees. There's just not enough information in there. And this leads me to the core of what I wrote about in my Substack article, and now I'm transforming it into a podcast in which I said, look, we need to understand how AI really changes work. And I claim, and of course that's based on the research that we've been doing with my team, that's been happening all around the world really in the space of AI work transformation, there are three ways that AI changes work. The first way is so-called substitution. This is where AI systems start doing the work that humans used to do. So that's the substitution. It's like instead of hiring a junior associate to draft emails, now you get a chatbot. You'll have mass translations, sort of those automated translations that human used to do. Now algorithms do it, much more quickly, potentially much more cheaply. Or even things like answering some basic customer queries. That used to be a human that would address that. Right now, there's a lot of chatbots that substitute those humans and perform those actions. This is where you can ask a question: is AI cheaper than a human? You will also ask about quality of that work and so on, but this is the case in which you are allowed, or it makes sense, to ask a question about the difference of costs between a human and an AI system. So substitution was the first one. The second one is augmentation. This is where humans are starting to use AI systems as effectively tools that augment their capabilities. This is the software developers that start using vibe coding tools or, coding agents. They're still in charge, or they're still there in the process. They're not being substituted. They're not being replaced by an AI. They're being augmented, enhanced, strengthened, if you will. And so, that work looks a bit differently. And so we have that case with software developers. We have that case with radiologists, for instance, who now can get algorithms to annotate some of the images that they're analyzing, and they get that help from the algorithm. So human is still there. AI is just a tool that's not really replacing a human, but providing more of an enhancement to the human work. It's the excavator operators who take an excavator and control it. They need that excavator. Without the excavator, that would be very, very inefficient. A human with a shovel is obviously, much less efficient than a human with an excavator, but it's a tool. And so here, the question is not whether a tool is more expensive than a human. An excavator might be more expensive to maintain than a human's salary. I'm not really sure about it, but there'll be a lot of equipment where it'll hold. Think about, mining equipment and those huge trucks that are definitely much more expensive to maintain than a human operator's salary. It doesn't mean that suddenly, humans are cheaper in those mines. You still need the machines. But what you can do is you can start comparing tools against tools. So this truck might be cheaper than that truck. This excavator might be cheaper than that excavator. So this is where there's a different question. In substitution, we did have a question of whether a human could be cheaper or more expensive than an AI system. In the augmentation example, we are now comparing tools to tools, not tools to human. And then there's a third way of thinking about how AI changes work, and for the purposes of the article, I called it activation. So we had substitution, augmentation, and then activation. Activation is where AI systems activate or enable completely new types of work. Things that would have not been possible before with just humans. Protein folding is a beautiful example. There were no human protein folders before, at least not at the scale that algorithms can do it. Maybe a human could perform calculations to fold one or a couple or a few proteins a day, a week, and so on. With algorithms, the scale is orders of magnitude higher. That's for medical scientific purposes. We'll have the same in finance industry, real-time fraud detection at a scale of billions of operations a day or so. This would have not been possible without AI, without algorithms that are very, very sophisticated. And I can keep giving you all those examples where suddenly those sophisticated computer systems, whether it's pure AI or something slightly, more complex than just a pure AI system, those are activating, those are enabling completely new types of work. And again, in those cases, you cannot ask a question, is human more expensive than an algorithm? Is human cheaper than an algorithm? It just doesn't make sense. What you can ask about is what are the outputs, what are the outcomes, what is the effect of this work? So the Axios article that was talking about NVIDIA's deep learning team was trying to compare the cost of a human to cost of AI in an activation case. NVIDIA is doing something that would have not been possible without AI, without all those GPUs that they have. You cannot imagine a human performing all those rounds of training an AI algorithm by hand. That's simply unimaginable. That's never going to happen. That never happened before. Maybe in some extremely simple neural networks with just a couple of neurons, that would have been imaginable. Anything beyond that, you need a machine to do it. So this is not a case of replacement. The Fortune article with Microsoft, they were discussing a case of augmentation where we have a tool and are replacing it for another tool. And Fortune was looking at it through the lens of substitution. All right? Axios looking at the case of activation through the lens of substitution. That's the logical fallacy. Fortune looking at the case of augmentation through the lens of substitution, another logical fallacy. So you just have to be extremely careful about it. And that's something that honestly really annoys me right now when I read all those headlines. What's the lesson for all of us? Well, when we go back to work and talk about digital transformation, talk about AI deployment, return on investment on our AI initiatives, we need to apply those lenses. Look at a particular project that you have. Look at a particular cost line that you have in your organization and ask yourself, is this substitution? Is this augmentation? Is this activation? You probably will have a lot of substitution cases because those are typically the easiest to imagine, the easiest to deploy. Yes, talk about the cost of human, the quality of human work, the cost of an AI system, the quality of an AI system. In the Substack newsletter, I use the term adequacy, whether the outputs are adequate when it comes to those particular projects. If they are inadequate, you probably don't even want to be substituting human work with an AI system. If they are adequate or more than adequate, then you look at the cost. So the quality here is looked at through the lens of adequacy. Now, so this is substitution. For cases in your organization where you have augmentation, again, try to identify which of those we're talking about or we're looking at. And remember, this is not a comparison. This is not a cost comparison between a human and an AI system. This is a cost comparison between an AI system or an AI tool and another tool, another way of augmenting your employees or completely removing that augmentation part, right? But your humans stay there. For the activation cases, granted, there'll be the fewest of them in the organizations that you might be working. That's simply because those are the most complex, most advanced, most forward-looking transformative initiatives. You don't compare the cost of a human doing that work and an AI system doing that work because most likely in your activation cases, you simply cannot replace an AI system for a human. You're looking into the impact of those activation initiatives on your organization. Perhaps it's a new business model, new revenue stream. So you look at it through a different lens. You look at it differently. Next time you open a newspaper, a newsletter, you look out at a web page and you see a headline saying, hey, humans are cheaper than AI, don't fall into this trap of a false sense of security. This is making us complacent. We should not be falling prey to this type of headlines. We need to be slightly more sophisticated with our thinking, and hopefully the lenses of substitution, augmentation, and activation will help you think about AI transformation in your organization, in your work, maybe even in your life from now on. That's it for me from now. Some new music from my son Philip. Zofia is producing the podcast as always. You stay curious.